Hello, everyone. You're very welcome to our second session this evening. Um, Again, I just want to really show my appreciation and thanks for people for signing up for the second session and taking 90 minutes out of your time to spend it here on your own development. I think it's a very admirable trait in people that you have that growth mindset and you're looking to improve aspects of your life. And I don't take this 90 minutes lightly that I have your attention and focus for it. Just to reiterate from last week, I think to get the most out of this 90 minutes, you have to bring a level of yourself that maybe, might be tired after the day, or there might be some lethargy after the weekend. And it's just trying to give yourself the best opportunity to get the most out of the next 90 minutes. So, if you can put your phone outside the room, as I said last week, research will tell us that if we have a phone in front of us within 20 meters of our radar, we're more than likely going to check it every 3 to 5 minutes. And when we do check it, it could take us up to 22 to 26 minutes to get back to the level of focus that we had and the engagement that we're bringing to the task that we're doing. So, to get the best out of yourself tonight, get the most out of the workshop and looking at developing aspects of your values, your purpose, your character strengths, try to be fully engaged in what we're at tonight. And I think you'll get massive benefits out of it. And I'm really looking forward to sharing with you tonight some further insights on, how we can kind of cultivate the roots of the tree. So you might say, why the hell has Tony O got a tree up on the first slide in the presentation? And for me, when I think of life at the moment, uh, you know, the leaves are things on our external environment that can be getting shaken up and blown away, and that's successes or failures. That can be jobs, that can be cars, that can be income, that can be our clothes, that can be certain behaviors. And we kind of talked around the iceberg last week. Well, below that, I reckon if those successes and failures and those achievements are going to come and go, but if you have a really strong belief system where you know what you're about, you know what you believe in as a person, you know what's important to you, you know what you want to demonstrate in society to your friends and families and colleagues, and you know what you stand for as a person, well, then the achievements will come and go, and you realize that what's most important is what you believe about yourself, what you believe about others, what you believe about society, and what you believe about the world. And when we start to nourish the roots of Anton, on the outside, we get great results and great outcomes when we give it the right food, the right air, the right nutrients, and our mind and our body and our spirit and our emotional game is the exact same thing. And I start to talk to myself with calmness, with clarity, with confidence. My external view of the world changes. I start to nourish myself and my relationships with love, compassion, and kindness. Well, that's what I experience on the outer world. And I start to get very clear on who I am, what I believe in, and what I want from my life. It's amazing what the world and the universe starts gravitating towards you and giving you around that. So tonight is about nourishing the roots and the foundations of your tree and your iceberg, and making sure that we're supplementing with the right thoughts, the right emotions and feelings, and then that subsequently will drive the behaviors and outcomes we get in our life. So without further ado, I'll move into the outline for the session tonight. And four main components tonight around the session will be around a purpose or a performance-based mindset. So a purpose is, what is the point to our life relationships, our career, our hobbies? Why do we do what we do? And a person who is very clear on their purpose, there is no confusion. There is clarity, there's conviction, there's certainty, and they get positive outcomes in their life because they have positive expectations driven by purpose. On the other hand, we see a lot of companies, teams, and individuals who are working off a performance-based mindset. And it's going from maybe month to month and week to week. And when that goes well, everything is rosy in the garden, people are happy, they're feeling motivated, they're feeling connected. And when the performance drops, what happens next? There's no overarching purpose to what they're doing, and they get a sense of helplessness and hopelessness and maybe a lack of confidence and motivation because performance dips in any aspect of life, and it's about how we recover from that that matters. So when I think of performance, there can be very much an outcome orientation towards performance, where people are driven by self-comparison, maybe demonstrating their abilities over others, and maybe judging their own standards of their own performance against others. And that for me takes a lot of joy away from life and a lot of joy away from the experience. If, on the other hand, we approach life tasks, life challenges with a mastery approach, we do things for the love of learning, the love of exploring how good we can get at something, and we just love the thing that we're doing for the sake of doing it. And whether we were, externally validated by supporters, fans, or team members, or we were externally validated by money or what recognition or awards, we'd still do the bloody thing because we love it so much. So when you get a team and an organization, a person who's high on purpose, they've moved from the winning and the losing, the highs and lows, to another level above this. A higher purpose is, why do we want to win? Why do we want to be a successful company? And you're looking at things like how we want to contribute to the world. We're looking at things how, from an economic and social point of view, we can make a difference in the world, how we can help families, how we can help younger generations. In a sports team, it's not just about winning the next match, it's maybe about uniting and inspiring the next generation to take up the game, follow the team, be proud of where they're from, have that sense of belonging and connection and that identity to your ancestors and what you're about. So purpose is an unbelievable fuel when we get clear on it and what it's about. The second section tonight is around character training. And when I look at this, I think it's such an important element that maybe we underutilize and undervalue from a point of view of developing confidence in people and self-esteem and self-efficacy. From building stronger connections in our personal and professional lives, from promoting more positive emotions and engagement in our careers and having that sense of flow and meaning in life and improving our health and well-being as a result. And character training will be a very important section around that. The third section then will be looking at our values and principles in action. So what do we value in life and what do we prioritize in life and what's important to us? And they can be people or activities or career or health, for example. And then the second part of that equation for me is who I am and what do I want to stand for in life. So they can be value-based words like honesty, kindness, commitment, loyalty, integrity. And be people who are very clear on these things, have a real sense of authentic leadership about inspiring others and come from a real source of inner strength and inner qualities. And regardless of how results happen or what happens in the external world, they know that they aspire to living their highest standards of their values and what's important to them. And it just generates massive confidence in people I've worked with and come across. The fourth piece is around vision and goal setting. So we all maybe have an idea of success or what success looks like for us. And tonight will be about exploring how we maybe generate that and some of the tools we can use from a mind point of view to generate those outcomes and expectations we like to have in our personal and professional life. So there are the four sections for tonight. I first want to start off with looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Why might this be important? So at different times in our life, our purpose might have been when we're in school to achieve good grades to please mom or dad, sign up to a college course because my uncle or my brother did it. And maybe we thought our purpose was to climb the career ladder. Maybe at different times we thought our purpose was to find a loving partner. Maybe we thought it was to get married and have kids. Maybe we thought our purpose was to go on holidays or travel to explore. And they're all goals for me and all achievements that we can attain. They're not our purpose. And at different times in our life, we might be even in the mindset of wanting to fulfill our potential in life. At times, prioritizing food, water, rest, security, and safety for all of us over the last 6 or 7 months has been a higher priority than ever before, and protecting our family and our friends from, potential viruses and diseases in society. And, everyone has probably been down at that basic need a lot over the last couple of months, and, we haven't thought around maybe fulfilling our potential. And then there's also the psychological needs that we need to, ensure that are happening in our life as well, around having that sense of belonging and our love needs been met, having intimate relationships with loved ones, family members and friends, feeling self-esteem has been nourished by our accomplishments and achievements in life, whether that's through academics, whether that's through our career or sport. It's finding those vehicles for ourselves to express ourselves and achieve and progress. And at different times during my career, I found it hard to focus on fulfilling my potential, where maybe a manager in work didn't see the potential in me to maybe add other value in other areas of the company. And I couldn't really fulfill my potential in that job, and I had to look elsewhere. At different times in sport, I didn't have intimate relationships with my management team. And that took away my energy trying to second guess what they thought of me and whether they were judging me or how good I was or not good at something. And that took away from my ability to, reach my full potential. So if you're a manager or leader, you kind of have to always be thinking of where's the needs of the team at this moment in time. If we're putting a meeting on at 4 o'clock in the evening and people have to collect kids, maybe they haven't ate since 12 o'clock that day, well, their basic needs maybe haven't been met, and they're not going to be much use or much concentration to you. So it's trying to think around people's needs and what they need at different times in their life. And, it's an important thing to carry into the rest of the workshop. The third component that we're going to look at today is around purpose. And I think of this as a kind of a compass that navigates like a sat nav on a car where you want to go, and it gives us that guidance and direction. And for me, purpose is just your aspirational reason for being. Why do you do what you do? And the Japanese have a term called Ikigai, and it sits at the center of finding something that you love, that you're passionate about, finding something that you're good at, finding something that you can get paid for and that the world needs. And your purpose sits at the intersection of all these things. And it's almost like a midpoint between your talent and abilities. And when we're clear on this purpose, we have conviction about us, we have confidence about us, and we have a big why. When we're uncertain and we're doubting, it's because we have failure to understand why we're doing anything. And whether that's why you exercise, it's a great question. Why would I exercise? What would it do for my health? And why are the reasons I exercise? When I'm making a career move in my work, either to go up the ladder or out of a company, why am I doing that? What's the reasons for it? So why is a great question to ask in relation to any move or any decision we're making. And there's always a purpose and a reason around why we do what we do. And when we can get clear on this, it's like the compass just gives us direction, guidance for those higher executive decisions we have to take in our life. It's like an internal compass in our mind and in our body and in our heart that just tells us what's right from wrong and what's the right direction and meaning for us. And people who are clear on purpose have a higher sense of meaning, and they have a higher ability to inspire others. So we'll be diving right into this evening. What are the benefits of purpose? If I was to just start at the bottom there around making meaning. In my first workshop, I mentioned a guy called Viktor Frankl, who survived 7 or 8 concentration camps, and he was a psychiatrist back during those times. And he has studied and observed the men and women who survived these concentration camps. And he found the people who tried to help others and who gave their last piece of food to people that were starving in the concentration camps survived the longest. So despite terrible atrocities and pain happening in front of them, they were able to make meaning in that situation that was important to them, and it allowed them to survive those camps and come out the other side. So making meaning in our career, what does that mean? Making meaning in sport, what does that mean? They're all important questions that we need to ask ourselves. The second piece around identity and being yourself. So we spend a whole lot of time in the education system and our career pathways around acquiring skills, knowledge, and experience. But how much time do we put into understanding ourselves? And you're some of the great people that have come on the call this evening that have decided that I want to discover a bit more about myself and mastering my inner game. So what does being myself look like? Well, in a Harvard Business Review, it was decided that the most admirable trait that people liked in inspiring leaders was to be authentic. And in essence, to be authentic means to be yourself. So how can we be ourselves if we don't know what we believe in and we don't know what we value? So tonight we're going to explore that even deeper to understand what we value and what's important to us. And if we looked at that Harvard Business Review and we looked at the 6 components of an inspiring leader, we would find that it comes down to honest communication, high emotional intelligence, your ability to understand your own emotional life inside and how it impacts others when you respond with calmness, clarity, confidence. When you're able to understand your own emotional response inside as maybe hostile, angry, or frustrated, and the impact that might have on others. When you're able to see in other people where they're maybe down, sad, overwhelmed, and you're able to be empathetic with them around that and see, can you help them come to a solution? They are really great traits of a leader. Knowing your own limitations. So if you run your own business or you're managing a team or you're part of a group, it's actually very powerful from a leader to say, I don't have all the answers. I'm weak in this area. That's why I'm asking for help with this person or this resource, so the team isn't lacking in that area or lacking in that resource. And we also have the vulnerability to say, I'm willing to be coached here and I want help here because I realize it's not my strength. And we can't be masters of everything. Also, it's about appreciating our strengths. And tonight we'll be looking at our strengths and what are our character strengths and how do we leverage them in today's society to find more meaning and purpose, to have greater positive emotions and mental health, to grow our self-confidence and self-esteem, and connect better with others. And the last part of knowing ourselves is being clear on our purpose and values. So there are 5 very important traits when it comes to being authentic. Another study by the Charter Institute of Management over in the UK looked at 2,000 managers and they said, what makes an inspiring leader or manager? And we can only be inspirational to people when we're clear on our purpose, and then we can inspire others. And if we're not clear on our purpose and we're not inspired ourselves, we can hardly think we're going to inspire others in our team or in our personal or professional life. So some of the 6 traits around inspiring others from their survey was, number 1, to care, genuine care for people. So it's not what we tell people, It's how we make them feel. That's the most important thing. 2, to involving everybody, giving them a sense of choice, giving themselves autonomy around projects, around tasks that we're doing, and making them feel valued. Appreciating them, showing them appreciation for the work they've completed, the kindness they've shown towards you, how they've helped you. Make people feel valued and respected. Number 4 is, can you bring a sense of fun and enjoyment to the interactions you have on a daily basis, be it in your personal or professional life? Can you put high trust in people, giving them responsibility, giving them autonomy to do a task or a job in whatever way they do, and support them around that, and highlight the strengths and positive elements of what they delivered on, and maybe improvement areas? And can we genuinely listen to people? Not talking over them, not talking at them, but actually really listening to hear their point of view, not to respond. So I'd like you to have a little reflection to start with there, and say, out of those 6 points at the moment, if I was to practice rating my skills around caring, involving people, showing appreciation, having fun and enjoyment, showing trust in people, listening to others, what rating would I give that skill? And we're not rating ourself or our self-esteem, we're rating skills. Showing care is a skill, involving people is a skill, showing appreciation is a skill. So if you rate yourself from 1 to 10, 10 being optimal and excellent, 1 being least optimal and excellent, what number would you give yourself in each of those buckets? And give yourself an overall rating out of 60. So I'll give you 3 or 4 minutes having a look through those buckets, rating your skills out of 10. And if you were a 6 or a 7 or an 8 in any of those buckets, start to write 1 or 2 reflections or reference points as to why you arrived at that score. What's the things you've done well? What's your strengths? Let's really work on this strengths basis again this evening and highlighting your key strengths. And not to ignore some of the limitations then. If you were to pick one bucket there that you'd like to improve, and we're just bringing awareness to it, and when we bring an awareness to something, we bring light to it, we can then look at some of the options and choices we have around that. So if there was one area there that you feel you'd like to step up on and move it 1 decimal point or 1 point over a score on the scale, what would be one action you could focus your lens on over the next month to dial that up and be very intentional and deliberate around some habit or practice or behavior around that? Who could be the people in your life maybe that you thank more? Could you write maybe a Christmas card or a card of thanks to them? How could you bring more fun into your career maybe? How could you demonstrate more care for the people that matter in your life? And maybe the less fortunate that you don't know but are aware of may need help. I'm just starting to make a little vote for rising up that inspiration bar that's in all of us. Everyone in this call has the ability to inspire young and old, inspire in their home and inspire in their community. And a little act or gesture can go a long way to cultivating not only the happiness of the person that receives it, but research it also tell us that it drives up your sense of happiness as well, and gratitude towards life in general and the life experience, and improving your connection and relationship with others by doing these subtle gestures on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis is a great way to raise that positive emotion in ourselves and in others. I'm just going to give you another 30 seconds maybe to jot down a few ideas. So next piece we're going to look at is maybe crafting your own purpose now. And I'm going to just share with you maybe two great examples from my lifetime, any of people who've lived a life of purpose and what inspiring role models they are in society. So the first two people I've up here is Oprah Winfrey, and the second is Nelson Mandela. And I haven't studied Oprah hugely, but I'm aware of a lot of her work around podcasts, and I've listened to some great podcasts she's delivered over the last number of years on the Soul Sundays. And her purpose in life is to live your best life. And she didn't have the most easiest upbringing with one of her parents. You know, what she's done from a presenting point of view, how she's, you know, changed, I suppose, a lot of the judgments of presenters in America, and maybe difficulties that different color presenters would have over there. She's really set the trend for young female presenters, young black presenters coming through, that they can create a career for themselves and can navigate, you know, the challenges that are there and the prejudices that are there. And she's really set the bar very high, and she's brought communities together, both black and white and different religions and cultures, to feed a very powerful message. And you can really feel it in her voice and her presence that she's living her best life and doing great work around it. The second person is Nelson Mandela. And Nelson is a guy I suppose read a lot on, watched a lot of movies on, and you know, for a guy to spend over 30 years in prison, and very shortly after being let go from prison, he decides to bring the warden and the prison guard out for dinner. And people would have said that he was abused both mentally and physically in there for 30 years by these guys who wanted to have him hung, I think eventually for was the sentence, but wasn't carried through. And he decided that he couldn't stay in prison in his mind forever, and he had to forgive. So he brought the two of them out for dinner a couple of weeks after being let go. And, you know, his purpose was to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others. So forgiveness has been a huge part of his purpose, and his purpose that he wants to allow people to experience freedom like he has in his latter years in particular. So what are we trying to craft here from your own personal point of view? Why do you do what you do? What is the essence and aspiration and your reasons for being? It's a great question, and I'm going to give you a couple of questions now to maybe explore that. And it's to look at these 5 main categories. And I appreciate some people on the call have joined today for the first time, and maybe a part of the pre-exercise work for the workshop didn't get a chance to do this. So I'm going to go through this briefly. So it's to look at your life maybe and start to record some of the peak moments from life where you felt most energized, most in flow, at your peak. You felt invincible almost. And to try and think of those moments and memories and those events and say, what was I doing during those moments or events that made it a highlight? Was it career related? Was it travel related? Was it sports? Was it with people in communities or groups or societies? Was it charitable? Was it a creative thing that you're doing? And then it's about identifying the key themes linked with your peak moments, e.g., freedom, learning, giving, achieving, innovating, creating. And when you've identified maybe some of these key themes, what's the category maybe that stands out the most for you? And what was that about? Was it about making a difference? Was it maybe helping others? Was it making change happen? And start to identify maybe a category that has a higher meaning for you and a higher purpose for you. And if it was about being with others, helping others, making a difference, what does that main theme mean to you and why? And just start to craft maybe an initial purpose statement. And when I looked at this in my own life, it was probably, times when I felt around my best was in front of groups, maybe presenting and educating and learning, on a sports field, feeling the highest level of challenge, but exhilarated by that challenge. Working as part of a group has been huge for me, both in a work context, sport context, and a community context. And creating new projects, writing new material, been a part of books. They've all been great themes for me that were linked to the peak moments. And really, for me, it probably boiled down to helping others and trying to make a contribution in an impactful way in society. And I suppose my higher purpose at the moment is to enable people through education, through inspiration and care to achieve higher levels of health, well-being and performance. And I probably distill that down to enable people to achieve their potential. And that probably gets me out of bed in the morning, and that's my higher purpose in my career and personal and professional life. And I find it gives me huge meaning and direction. Just waiting for everyone to come back from the meeting room, the breakout rooms. And I just think it was important for the group to maybe share their own experiences. I realize that there's great life experience in this group, there's great professional experience in this group, and it's nice to come together and put just some context on some of the ideas you have around purpose and share some life experience around positive moments you had and peak moments you had. So thanks to everyone there for coming on board with that. I'm just going to continue with the presentation. So we're just looking at character strengths as the next piece. And, you know, when I look at this, I think it's such importance, you know, when we look at character strengths from a work context, if I'm using 3 out of my top 5 character strengths, it's shown to increase my ability to go into that flow experience. It provides more meaning in my professional context as well. When I have more meaning and a more flow, I'm engaged and absorbed, and I'm obviously going to improve academic performance, job performance. You know, when I'm working on a place from my character strengths, I'm focused on my strengths, and we all have a negativity bias where we try to look at limitations all the time, maybe in skills or qualities we don't have. When we're working off a place of character strengths, you know, we've better coping skills then under pressure and stress. And, you know, when we're able to reflect on things we've done well through our character strengths in our personal and professional life, we increase our level of self-esteem and self-confidence, and we're more likely to take on higher challenging goals and more riskier goals. And when we're able to appreciate and recognize the character strengths in others, what does that do? It means we have more meaningful and intimate relationships with them. So all these things help with us having more positive emotions and providing more positive conversations with people, and that drives our overall health and well-being. So, you know, a great coach over in America, John Wooden, would always say that, you know, be more concerned with your character than your reputation. Reputation is probably what people give you because of your results in business or sport or whatever it is, but your character is something that we know you can develop through identifying these character strengths and trying to lean on them and leverage them in a personal and professional capacity. So what I've asked people to do that who've been on the previous webinar is to fill in a little evaluation questionnaire, and I think there's probably around 200 questions roughly in it. And for the people that are joining us for the first time tonight, I will share that with you post the workshop, and you'll be able to identify some of the key strengths of yours. And there's 24 involved, and they're all in different sections there. And you know, this was devised by Martin Seligman, who's like the godfather of positive psychology. And he identified that, you know, strength spotting is a really important skill that we all have to get better at in recognizing in others and in ourselves. And as I mentioned, some of the positive things of bringing these strengths and values in action to our work and our professional life, your improving performance, confidence, well-being, connection and relationship with others, self-esteem, you know, it's just absolutely massive. So if you're a person that hadn't a chance to fill this in, I would say look at these 24 traits here and say, right, could I pick 10 out of these that are meaningful to me and they're character strengths I feel I show sometimes or all the time, or, you know, want to show maybe as an aspiration. And then when you maybe have identified 10 of these, could I maybe narrow it down to my top 5 and rank them from 1 to 5? And then for the people who have maybe really worked on this, you know, there's a few key questions here I'd like you to consider. And I'm going to give people a couple of minutes maybe to explore these if they haven't had the time. And it's to work on what are my top 3 character strengths and why do they matter to me? If learning matters to me, if honesty matters to me, if appreciation of beauty matters to me, if kindness matters to me, why does it matter? And how do these character strengths then show up in my relationships? And they can be personal relationships, they can be personal, professional relationships. How do these character strengths show up in my career? And how do I bring them to my passions and my other interests? I might be a coach or a manager or a volunteer of a society or a sports club. You know, I might be on the board of some executive or, you know, whatever it is. How do I kind of bring those character strengths into those areas? And if I was to look at my top 5 character strengths, what one could I bring more of to work, you know, to life, to relationships, to my hobbies or my passions? And how would I do that? And the last piece then is, you know, if I believe that my top 3 character strengths are around honesty, kindness, integrity, learning, whatever it is for you, could I put that into a statement that I say to myself 5 or 10 times a day? So if I'm Peter or I'm Jennifer or I'm Helen and I'm brushing my teeth in the morning, as I'm brushing that teeth, could I say to myself, I'm honest, I'm kind, I'm loved? When I'm eating my lunch, maybe before I eat my lunch, could I reaffirm to myself, I'm honest, I'm kind, I am committed? Maybe when I'm looking at my diary every night and I'm reflecting on my day and I'm saying, what's the 5 or 6 things I did well today? And I look at my character strengths and say, where did I show honesty today? Where did I show kindness today? Where did I practice learning today? Where did I show appreciation today? And I start to make that very intentional and very deliberate around those practices. And I start to bring them into my work context. I start to bring them into my personal and private relationships. And I make it very intentional practice every day to reflect on these. And I start to train my strength spotting and recognize when I'm doing it really well and how I showed up around these strengths, both from a work context and a personal context. So that's the importance of strengths. If anyone has any questions on that, I'd love to feel if you want to type it into the text box or just ask it in general. Does that make sense to people, or have you any questions on it?
Oh, sorry. Hey, Tony.
Tony, can I ask you a question there?
Yeah, no problem.
Is it possible that one of your strengths could actually work against you if you use it too much?
Great question, Ed. Suppose everything is context and context specific, like, you know. So again, asking people, do they feel you're too honest? Maybe if I was to take that context for a moment, you know, and honesty is a really important strength of mine. I have to know the context and where that person is at and how much of a level they're able to go at around honesty. So when I'm providing feedback to someone in my life that maybe is under stress or is overwhelmed at the moment, if I'm going in there being honest around this is what I see in you at the moment and your behaviors, you know, I'm going to get a defensive person who's going to shoot me down straight away. Now, if I catch them on another day where they're calm and clear and they're relaxed at the weekend, maybe, and I say, listen, I noticed this in you over the last week or so. When you get stressed, maybe you're not looking after yourself, you're not eating well, you've stopped exercising, and, you know, you're going into yourself. Now, that person is maybe recognizing that I'm coming from a place of care rather than attacking them, and they go defensive and shut down on me. So absolutely, I think it's really important that we know the context and we're emotionally aware of where that person is at in their week and in that moment before we deliver that honesty. But I think it's really important. And in my experience, when we are honest with each other, it brings us closer when it's delivered in the right way at the right time. And it's a hard thing to do, to face into those truths in our own personal relationships and professional relationships. But I think deep down, people really value that. And I've definitely found it really hard throughout my life when I haven't got honest feedback from people around why I wasn't hired for a project, or why I was let go from a project, or why I was let go from a team or not starting on a team, and the person in front of me was fluffy. I find it hard then to have that trust and faith in them that they're going to do the right thing the next time that decision comes up. Whereas if you're completely clear and honest in your communication, people kind of know where you're standing and what your boundaries are around things and the standards you expect around things. And the more consistent you are on that and the more confident you are delivering it, you know, I think people respond to that in the right way over time. And yes, there will be some people that take it up the wrong way, and it's probably trying to explore that and understand how they interpreted what you delivered and what you tried to deliver, and maybe they didn't hear in the right way. So does that kind of make sense, Ed?
Yeah, great. Thank you, Tony. Excellent.
Anyone else, any kind of questions around that exercise or any insights they'd like to ask on? Okay, so the next important piece we'll look at now is around values. And, you know, for me, this is up there with that beliefs piece that I covered the last day, and how important it is that we are clear on people of who we are and what we stand for and what's important to us. And, you know, the best leaders I've been around, the best teams I've been around, they have a culture of values and a culture of values about themselves and what they're about that they're very clear on. And whether that's commitment or that honesty or that teamwork or hard work, they're very clearly aligned on that and what best practice looks like and what it doesn't. And they constantly challenge each other around that and recognize when it's done well and challenge each other in a supportive way around when it's not done well. And, you know, it's really the best teams who are raising the standards every year. They're very, very strong on these things. You know, when I listen to interviews around the best teams, that's what you hear back from them around their professionalism and their commitment and their dedication to it. And, you know, the values that the group hold and how they hold themselves, the higher standard around that. And from a personal point of view, it's so, so important as well that we know who we are, we're authentic around that, and we try to live by those values on a daily basis. And they guide our decision making, our choices, and our behaviors ultimately. So how I try to separate between, you know, what's important to me and my priorities in life and who I want to be. So a number one priority for me every day and non-negotiable around what I value is my health. And if I don't exercise and practice exercise and eating well, sleeping and movement and hydration, my health is going to deteriorate from a physical and mental point of view. And I won't be the same person to my family, my friends, my career, and my hobbies. So having very clear practices around my own health and best practice around those areas is very, very important because I see the importance of them transferring into my career and the rest of my life. And bringing a high level of honesty to my health is very, very important to me. On the other side of this then, you know, and I believe, you know, we all prioritize family and health and friends and career and hobbies in different ways. It's about how you bring that to light every day around your practices and your behaviors. The second thing is then who I want to be in society. The number one thing for me is around being honest. And sometimes that might be delivering a difficult message to people I love or people I respect or people I work with, but I'm doing it from a place of challenging them to be better than they are because I believe they can be better than they are. And I believe everyone on this call can be better than they are, you know, 1, 2, 5% on a daily and weekly basis. And, you know, we all need someone maybe to challenge us to do things to the highest level and the highest level of our potential. And, you know, learning for me is another important thing that I want to be doing on a daily and weekly basis. And I suppose I didn't really value that till maybe 29 or 30 years of age. When I went back to college after spending 10 years in finance, I never really knew what it was like to learn stuff that you really, really enjoyed. And when I went back and done a master's in sports and exercise psychology, it opened up a whole new world of learning for me. And I've become, I suppose, an avid studier of human health, behaviors, and performance for the last 6 or 7 years now, more than ever. And, you know, having gone through it as an elite athlete for 10 years, you know, it's a major passion of me to trying to get the best out of people around their health, well-being, and performance. And learning has been a huge part of that to open up those doors for me, both from a corporate, a sports, and, you know, a general population setting. So I put a high priority on, you know, being honest, being kind, being inspiring, learning, and having integrity. So doing the things I said I'd do when I said I'd do them. And I realize when people aren't being honest with me, it does really great with me, and I find it difficult to have relationships with them and work with them. And, I mentioned maybe previous managers that weren't clear with me had a massive impact on me, maybe not reach my potential in a professional setting, in a sports setting. And the importance of that for me when I'm working with people is to have that level of honesty, even when it's tough to have those conversations, but realizing that we're both trying to get the best out of the current situation and the best outcome for us both and for the team or the organization. So that's how I kind of stink between, priorities in life and who I want to be and how I want to demonstrate that. So for you to maybe explore this, for me, values come from our learned experience. So I've learned about honesty from previous managers I've had. I've learned from learning by going back into college and maybe sampling poor lectures and poor content that I did enjoy, and some great lectures and some great content and some great classmates that really made me appreciate learning and how it can impact others. So, that's the importance of having that learned experience. And there's goals sometimes when we face into the most difficult moments. So for me, when I thought after 10 years my Galway career was finished and I didn't know what I was going to do, at the time I could only see one side of that and the horribleness of it and all that. But in time, it opened up so many more doors for me over the next couple of years. And I probably traveled the length and breadth of the country and met many great people from a sport and business background and been able to coach them because I wasn't ingrained in a county setup that would have taken all my energy. So there can be great opportunities in what we think is a setback at the time. So this exercise again, and it will probably take people a bit of time to explore it again. And it's around, if you're to look at your own values and say, here's my life, first decade from 0 to 10, second decade from 10 to 20, third decade from 20 to 30. Some people may be in the 30 to 40s and some may be in the 50s to 60s. And it's trying to explore, right, that's the duration of my life on a page, and start to mark out some key experiences and turning points that have shaped your life so far. So that could be birth of a sibling, birth of a child, going to school for the first time maybe. For me, I was in a nine pupil school in primary school. It was plain sailing, very easy, 3-teacher school. And then wham, I was into St. Mary's College with 140 first years, all boys and a lot of testosterone around the place. And then going into college then was a whole different dynamic where I had no female influences really bar my teachers for about 5 years in school. And then you're going into a lecture hall with 300 people, male and female, and hadn't really mixed at that level and caused a lot of anxiety for me. So, it's amazing the different life experiences that shape us, be it relationships or education, moving from home, maybe moving out of home, moving to a different county or country, how that kind of shapes us. Maybe a job change at the time, which we thought would have been a disaster, but opened up so many opportunities and possibilities for us. Good and bad relationships with managers. When we reflect on that and we see, the way he treated me has actually helped me to coach in a better way and understand the person in front of me first before I go looking at performance KPIs or whatever it may be. Understanding that financial issues make you appreciate maybe money when it comes into your life and the opportunity it gives you to travel or learn or to share presence and experiences with friends. And at times we maybe have lost a job. I know I've lost a couple of jobs, and we thought that at the time, would I ever get a job again? Who would ever hire me? Oh, the shame of embarrassment of being let go. And then all of a sudden you start in another place and it's a whole new environment and it starts to get the best out of you. Illness or injury that we all have got at different times in our life can maybe help us appreciate the things that we do have. So if you broke an ankle or a leg, or you're in hospital with a bad back for a couple of weeks or months, being able to get out and walk and fresh air and run and cycle and swim, you really appreciate those small things once again, and it kind of wakes you up to how lucky you are and the opportunities that you had. And different family matters we've all had through our lives. I've definitely struggled with things in our life where through our family tree, we've had a couple of suicides. Alcoholism has been an issue in my family tree through grandparents and parents and stuff, and that has an effect on you, and that sense of isolation and rejection by those things can have an effect on you. So all these things have helped you shape to be, the person you are, and it's probably trying to shine both aspects of it, both positive and negative, and how they've shaped you. And maybe people on the call have lost loved ones, and that's shaped your appreciation of life and trying to live every day to the full and trying to be the best you can be in your personal and professional life. So just maybe looking at one or two of those events and what was the impact on you. So if you lost your job, was it a sense of loss? Was it a sense of injustice? If you had an experience where you were made redundant, maybe you had financial issues, was it anger? Was it fear? Was it love? And trying to write about that experience a bit and see what kind of impact it did have on you at the time and how you kind of reflected on it now. And what's the learning that you took upon that? And what's the conclusion you made from it? And, sometimes losing that job can, give you that motivation to be better the next time when you go into a new work environment. As I said, the poor manager experience can actually shape you and help you with your current role as a leader or manager or parent, etc. And maybe that death or illness helped you appreciate the things that you do have in life at the moment and let go of the things you don't. And then it's trying to identify the specific value around that it was. Was it kindness? Was it respect? Was it learning? Was it honesty? So again, I appreciate some people on the call having a chance to do this exercise and just giving you a couple of moments maybe to explore that. And if anyone has any questions they'd like to ask on that exercise, feel free to put one in the chat box maybe or ask out as well. Okay, we're just going to move into the last section and it's the final piece for tonight. And it's around that vision piece. So when I think of last winter and, I probably recognize my purpose in life was, to enable, I suppose, others to achieve their potential. And one of the ways I wanted to impact that was by, teaching more people, writing maybe, and been involved in research a bit more. And when I kind of had that image in my head and I wrote that up on a whiteboard, I'm just going to tell you what's kind of unfolded in the last 9 or 10 months for me. So I wanted to put a book together and kind of started to write down some of my experiences that I'd had as, elite sports person for over 10 years, working in corporate business for 10 years and coaching some high performance teams and organizations the last 6 or 7 years. And I wanted to kind of put a book together and put a few chapters together on what I've learned, I think, along that journey. And I started to send that out to a few mates of mine who were journalists and just got kind of feedback on it. And one of them said it was really good and he put me in touch with RTE. And the next thing, I wrote 5 or 6 articles on RTE during the lockdown. And then the next thing, one of my mates was writing a book on a transition and an athlete transition and dealing with the struggles of that, because a lot of athletes kind of go bankrupt in professional sport. They get divorced and they have a lot of mental health issues and illness. So it was an area that I was really interested in and was delighted to contribute to his book. And then another one of my friends would be a youth sport coach, and he was bringing out kind of a guide for the young athletes around how they could develop themselves from a mental, physical, tactical and technical point of view, and also develop some of the character qualities and skills that we're talking about over the last 2 workshops. And he asked me to put a number of chapters together for that book. And, that was another piece that came out in the last couple of weeks that I was really proud of. And then during the year I'd been chatting to a couple of universities around doing a course, and the next thing they asked me, would I come on as a guest lecturer and start doing a few lectures around sports and exercise psychology with a sports science department in GMIT. And then I suppose this kind of came to fruition that I wasn't working with any county senior squad this year, and the lockdown gave me a chance to create my own program, and so proud and privileged to have everyone on this call the last couple of weeks as well. And that's where not having the most perfect vision, but that has actually led to the most amazing things starting to come into my life over the last 12 months. So you kind of put an idea together of what you'd like your life to look like, maybe from a career point of view, or a health point of view, or a sport point of view, or a travel point of view. It's just really about kind of getting some image in there and some words in there that would describe that. And sometimes we just have to put that out there, accept that maybe it's happening and the subconscious mind is working away on that program to get it. And it does seem to happen. And there was one team I worked with in sport a couple of years ago, and one of the things was I just put a vision in my head that I was going to be holding the Liam McCarthy with the captain and the other guy I worked with. And, lo and behold, my first year working with the team, that's what happened. So it's an amazing when we can get a clear vision in our mind of what success looks like and what the future looks like, how these things can come to fruition. Now, we also have to put in the work. And I spend countless hours reading and researching and developing parts of the books, up every morning at 5 o'clock writing for 2 or 3 hours. This course has put in huge amount of hours to bring to fruition and a lot of reflection. But, starting with that vision and that purpose gives you a huge kind of driving force around that. So the next piece is for you to maybe start that process of crafting your own vision. And when we give ourselves a bit of time and space, and we start to listen to what's in our heart and in our gut around what we want from life, we can start to achieve this and start to unearth it in ourselves. So the first thing I'm going to throw at you is around passions and priorities. So I want you to just think of, what's the 5 to 10 things you enjoy doing the most, and what elevates you, what energizes you, and what can't you live without? Just start to jot down a few ideas around that. And the second question then is just to look at priorities on a weekly basis. So what are the focus areas of your life that always need your attention? So I mentioned, and my thing was health, career, family. There are things that always need my attention. And is there a parallel between the things that you enjoy and love doing and your main areas of focus in life? Just to see, is there any crossover between your passions and priorities? So for me, I love education, I love learning, but the most important thing for me is to be able to share that learning. Lecturing gives me an opportunity to do that. Working with teams, both in a sport and corporate context, allows me to that. One-to-one coaching allows me to bring in some of that passion into my priorities as well. And we're just trying to fill in that intersection around Ikigai and, what you love doing and what you're passionate about, what the world needs and what you get paid for. Trying to explore this a bit more for you. I'm just going to put up a kind of wheel of priorities for you in life at the moment. And for some people, that might be all of these things on this list. For some people, it might be 4. And if you were to just say the next 12 months is a blank canvas, and I'm going to listen to my heart, and I'm going to take away fear of doing things, I'm going to replace it with love, enjoyment, and passion. And if I was going to bring love and passion and enjoyment to my career, what would that look like over the next 12 months? Around my health, how would I bring love and passion and joy to it? Around my family, if I was to let go of fear and show more love there, what would that look like? If I had a blank canvas around my relationships, my social life, what would that look like? Who would I see? Who would I visit? Where would I travel? And if I was to look at my personal growth, you've already signed up to this course, you're making steps towards that and understanding who you are and what you're about and what's your purpose. What would that look like on a daily and weekly and monthly basis over the next 12 months to harness and cultivate that inner growth and that emotional journey that you're on, a mental journey? And your attitude at the moment, are you a person who's orientated towards the positive and optimistic and sees that things are working out for me, opportunities are coming, and I can do this, I want to do this, I will do this, and I love and I like this about my life and my attitude? So I'd like you maybe to jot down a few ideas and, those 3 to 5 key priorities for you. If you had a blank canvas and you're writing a new chapter for your life, a new chapter for your book, what would the career chapter look like? What would the finance chapter look like? What would maybe the health and family chapters look like? What would the social life look like? What does the image of your best year, of your best health look like? What would the best year of your family look like? Your home environment, what would your best home environment look like? If you're bringing that growth mindset for the next 12 months, what challenges would you take on? Who would you seek feedback from? Where would you put your energy and effort into? Just let the biro flow with no judgment. Just harnessing those images, those words, those thoughts, creating that vision for your life. Starting to accept as if it already happened. That your subconscious program is beginning to work towards that vision already. And just one last slide for tonight to maybe cultivate what we've covered a lot, but also maybe some extra questions to broaden that vision for you. So we looked at question 1 around our values and principles. And that's a really important exercise, sitting with our beliefs, what I believe to be truths and false around myself, around people and society in the world, but also my values, what's important to me, how do I prioritize it, and what do I stand for as a person? And we talked about that authentic leader, in essence, is about being who you are and being true to yourself and being real to yourself. And we have to know our value system and where we've inherited that from what experiences. And, you know, that can be from parents, coaches, managers, and more than likely the setbacks and challenges we've had along the way have helped shape those values. You know, we mentioned there around, you know, trying to work off a place of our passions and our interests. So the 5 to 10 things that light us up and we really enjoy doing. Could we bring more of them into our life, more of them into our week? You know, a person who's on purpose is high in those energy and they're able to inspire others as a result. So what elevates you and what energizes you on a daily and weekly basis, and can you do more of it? You know, we looked at that wheel of life and the areas of focus for you and priorities for the next 12 months. What would that look like from a health point of view, a career point of view, the important relationships in your life, having that bit of fun and adventure in your social life and doing the things you're passionate about and enjoy. And then that strengths assessment that we did, and, you know, bringing your 5 top strengths to your life and, you know, leveraging them every day and being intentional about them every day in your personal and professional life. That'll increase your self-confidence, self-esteem. You'll have more positive emotions. You feel more meaning and purpose in what you do. And that's all driving up that bucket of positive emotion and greater well-being and greater confidence. And probably the last 3 questions are something to consider yourself in your own time. You know, if you're wanted to get some intensity into this vision over the next 12 months, and I said you've only a day left on earth, what would you have regretted not doing, seeing, or creating so far in your life? So if I told you this was your last week on this planet, what would you regret not doing, seeing, or creating? And that's just a great exercise to get a bit of intensity behind this and a bit of energy around this and a bit of clarity around it. And, you know, looking at the 3 skills you want to cultivate that enrich your life experience. So they could be, you know, appreciating others, listening with more intent, involving everybody, around those, you know, authentic leaders, inspirational leaders. What do I need to show up with more? And from a professional point of view, if I could, you know, what are the things you most do to feel fulfilled in your work? And how could I do a bit more of them on a daily and weekly basis? I'm going in passionate, you know, purposeful around work. And I'm seeing, you know, the most often people get flow experiences in their career. Yet we kind of feel like, you know, challenge and stress is a bad thing. And I'll be going on to this a bit more in our next workshop around pressure and performance. But challenge is really, really important in life. And, you know, that gets us to that physical and mental activation where we're able to perform. So a level of challenge is important, and it's trying to find those level of challenges that excites us, gets us absorbed and engaged in a task and work, gets us working with other people. And, you know, work is a great context to provide that at different times and provide that flow experience for us. So, you know, seeking out new challenges, seeking out new projects, find the things in a work context that maybe can spark that passion in you and that interest in you and working with other people. So I'm just going to stop the sharing there, and, you know, I see a few questions are coming through, but if other people have any questions they want to ask on tonight, so I have a question here. Is that where you are with those currently or where you want to be? I presume that's in relation to the wheel of life. So that exercise can be a really good thing to take a reflection now at the end of this month, the 30th of November, taking a snapshot and saying, right, in my career at this moment in time, my life satisfaction or my level of satisfaction in it is 1, not at all, 10, very high. Financially at the moment, you know, how I feel I'm doing, snapshot in time, 1, not at all happy, 10, very satisfied. And you can pick those key priorities in your life and start to, you know, reflect on what area your life is going well and maybe what areas you want to develop over the next 12 months, and looking at creating that vision and generating that energy around it. Has anyone any other questions they'd like to ask on tonight? If you want to type them into the chat box or ask them directly. Okay, so just to finish up tonight, maybe people might just pop into the chat box, maybe 2 things you've found beneficial from tonight, and maybe 1 thing you'd like to know a bit more of. So 2 things in the chat box, okay? 2 things you found beneficial, and 1 thing you might like to know more on.